Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. Frank Granito and Kevin Coleman coming to you live from atop the bleachers here at Testa Field on the campus of Norwalk High School as we get ready for tonight's doubleheader in girls and boys soccer as we've got the FCIAC championships coming to you live. Kevin, we'll have the girls game first, followed by the boys. It's Ridgefield and St. Joe's in a rematch for the girls, then Trumbull and Greenwich for the boys. We've got the top two seeds in both tournaments. Weather looks like it's going to hold off right now. It's a perfect day for soccer.
It's a perfect day for soccer. Beautiful weather, as you said. Right now, we're blue skies here at Norwalk High School. I think it's going to be a great night under the lights.
Let's look at this first game we'll have at 4:30. That's the girls. You've got St. Joe's, the number one seed, and Ridgefield. When they met earlier in the year, it was the Cadets who came away with a 1-0 win. This is a rematch of last year's championship, though, where the undefeated Cadets were knocked off by the Tigers. We were just talking off the air. You said you wouldn't be surprised if we saw this game go to PKs, maybe.
I'm going to stick with that prediction, actually, and I think it's going to be that close. We're seeing a 1 and 2 seed, again, a rematch of last year, Ridgefield trying to defend their title, and a St. Joe's team that is very strong this year with Jessica Mazzo and Lindsay Savko leading the way. I think both Veronica O'Rourke and Middlebrooks, the two keepers, are going to be, I think they're going to have an outstanding game today. I think it's going to come down to those two.
And you mentioned Veronica O'Rourke and Julia Middlebrook. It's no disrespect to either of these girls, but I think if we go to PKs, it's a game that's possibly 2-2 or even 3-3 by the end of overtime if that's the case. Both these teams are led by high-powered offenses. You mentioned Mazzo and Savko, and of course there's Damron and Jasminski for the Tigers. It's so tough to give an advantage one way or the other, but if you had to, which way do you lean right now?
I think I like the FCIAC championship kind of experience for the Tigers. I'm going to lean towards them tonight. They're coming in with a chip on their shoulder. Losing to St. Joe's 1-0 in the year. This is no disrespect to St. Joe's. They've had an outstanding year. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the year, and I think it's going to come down to PKs, like I said, and I think Ridgefield has the experience in PKs. I know St. Joe's had it in the quarterfinals and a close match in their quarterfinal match, and I just think it's going to come down. I think Ridgefield's going to have the edge.
And you have to wonder if in that quarterfinal match, maybe that was the wake-up call for the Cadets right there. They had a tie at the end of the regular season, came in just not to say sluggish, but a little complacent. They had locked up the number one seed with the win over Ridgefield, but then the scare in round one in the quarterfinals, they came back, very strong effort, and a 3-0 win over Wilton in the semis.
Yeah, I think that PK performance in the quarterfinals definitely woke them up. I think it scared them a bit. You don't expect a 1 seed to go to PKs in the quarterfinal round, and to come out like that and win 3-0, awesome performance by the Lady Cadets.
Ridgefield had a tough game in the semifinals against Staples. They came away 2-1 winners. The Tigers, they had high expectations coming into the year. They returned 9 of the 11 starters from last year's championship team. They lose the first matchup between St. Joe's, but it's very tough to beat a team twice this year. Do the Tigers come in feeling like underdogs, or do they think that this is just as much their championship to win?
I think a little bit of both, actually. I think sitting at the 2 seed, definitely underdog, and losing to St. Joe's this year. But since they're defending their title, I still think that it's both. I think they're going to come into this saying, we've been here. We've won this title before last year. We want to defend it. And so I don't think they're necessarily underdogs. I think they are in a way just because they only lost 1-0 to St. Joe's this year.
Focusing on the individual strikers, both teams led by 2 of the best in the FCIAC. You have Katie Jasminski. She has 15 goals on the season. Of course, Lindsay Savko, who we feel scores a goal in every game, especially when we see her. One of these girls is going to be the difference maker in this game. Goalkeepers aside, this is the game where offense is going to prevail. I think I lean Savko a little bit just because of her speed, and with Mazzo setting her up, she's really just flourished all season long, especially on the backstretch. But Damron is no slouch herself when it comes to passing to Jasminski.
You're absolutely right, and there's another girl on that team, Grace Franklin, and she scored the big PK in the semifinal round to put them up 2-1 against Staples. She's another player that can feed out to the wings or play through the middle to Jasminski, and Damron. Awesome year for her too.
And, every week on FCIAC Tailgate, when we cover our football games, we focus so much on special teams. For me, the special teams of soccer are the set pieces. You mentioned that PK off a handball in the box. You have to be able to capitalize on those opportunities. But Ridgefield is very dangerous off the set pieces, whether they're free kicks or corner kicks. How big of a factor will that be tonight?
Big factor. I think St. Joe's has to worry about that. They need to be careful when it comes down into their own end around the 18-yard box. They can't commit silly fouls. That's what's going to hurt them.
Of course, it's unseasonably warm today. Temperatures were in the 70s. There's a little bit of a breeze right now, at least at the top of the bleachers. But if it doesn't rain, and it looks like it might hold off, that temperature could obviously play a role. We've seen cramps. We saw them the other night in the boys' games late. How important will conditioning be now as we're this late into the season playing in a championship game?
Well, this is what it comes down to. This is why these teams, go through the preseason training. This is why they go, for those long runs during the long, hot summer days. This is what it comes down to. This is what you work so hard for. And it's come down to this day. This is championship day. This is what they work so hard for. And I think they're well trained, well conditioned for tonight.
It should be a lot of fun. The game will start at 4:30 right here on the HAN Network. We'll have pregame coverage opening up right around 4:20. Let's take a break, Kevin, here on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, we'll look at the second game of our doubleheader. That's Trumbull and Greenwich in the boys FCIAC Championship. All of that coming up right here on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
1, 2, 3, Abby! You know! I want to find out how good I am. Yes, sir! If you relax, you get blown out. Let's get it done! Let's get it done!
What can you take advantage of right now?
Again, come on. I can push myself way beyond what you think.
Pressure technique. Bring it back.
Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook. As you're getting back to your regular schedules, we're excited to get back to doing what we do best, offering you the freshest seasonal fare and all the ingredients for a healthy start to school. So shop Walter Stewart's for everything fresh, from A, apples to Z, zucchini, and from cotton candy grapes to back to nature all-natural snack bags. We save you time by stocking all of your favorite back-to-school essentials under one roof. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
This is now 44 years I've been in this business. Digital came along. After I was in business for about 6 years, I had to totally reinvent the business. So I had to make a tremendous investment in my business. And Milford Bank was there for me. I don't really just consider Milford Bank a bank. I consider them a trusted partner in my business. My name is Jim Wilson, owner of Milford Photo. I choose to bank with Milford Bank.
On Election Day in Connecticut, the HAN Network has you covered with real-time results and analysis.
Will your town vote for Trump or for Clinton?
And who will be representing you in Hartford and in Washington, D.C. HAN's news reporters and editors will be out in the field talking to the candidates, collecting results, and we'll be breaking it all down on air with live local analysis you won't find anywhere else.
Watch Connecticut Election Night 2016 live
November 8th at 8 p.m. on HAN.network and Frontier Communications channels 600 and 1600.
Back from Testa Field on the campus of Norwalk High School, this is Nutmeg Sports with Frank Renito and Kevin Coleman right here on the HAN Network as we look ahead to the second game this evening that we will have live for you. That's the Boys FCIAC Championship. The number 1 seed Greenwich Cardinals and the number 2 Trumbull Eagles. They're the only 2 remaining undefeated teams in the conference. They played to a scoreless draw earlier this season. And as fun as the first game is going to be, Kevin, this really was the game I think everyone was looking forward to when you mapped out these tournaments at the start of the postseason.
You're absolutely right. And yes, this first game, the girls' game, is going to be absolutely terrific. But for the boys' side, where you get a chance to see maybe two of the best teams in the state, to be honest. I mean, Greenwich right now sits at number 1 in the state. Trumbull in the top 5. These are two teams that easily could, also do very well in the state tournament. But when it comes down to tonight, it's hard because one of these two teams has to go home with a loss, and they've had just outstanding year. This year has been great for these two teams.
Looking at their championship history, Greenwich is 6-4 all time in the FCIAC championship. Trumbull 2-0. They won in 2011. Greenwich's most recent win being in 2013. Now, Kevin, these two teams have a little bit of a clashing style, though. Trumbull is obviously a high-powered offense. We've seen them through their first 2 games jump out to early 3-1 leads by the half, and being a little unsure of how to go about play then starting the second half, whether you want to push the pace and leave yourself vulnerable or just sit back and allow the opposing team to attack there.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see. You're absolutely right. They start off the second half almost playing back and not, putting the pressure on with the big 2-0 lead, especially in that last semifinal we just saw on Tuesday. We saw them kind of sit back, and it's questionable. You wonder if that's a strategy they use at halftime going to the dressing room. I think if they come out with a 3-1 lead like this, they can't just sit back. They need to keep going because this is a Greenwich team sitting at number 1 in the state with a great offense, guys who can score goals. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't tell you what the score is going to be tonight because we just don't know, because we don't know how well these two teams are going to match up with each other.
Both teams so similar in their stats when you take a look at it. Obviously, neither team has lost yet. Greenwich 13-0-3, Trumbull 12-0-4 at the end of the regular season. But Greenwich has scored 48 goals this season, Trumbull 49. Greenwich has allowed 13 goals. Trumbull has allowed 14. Both goal differential sitting at plus 35. It's such an even matchup across the board here. But you look at that Greenwich team and Trumbull, while they've become accustomed now to high-scoring games, Greenwich is playing some great defense, suffocating teams back there, and they're doing it with a sophomore goalie, James Johnson, playing beyond his years right now in his first FCIAC appearance.
I mean, he's only a sophomore. Really is amazing in his play. He had a great semifinal against Fairfield Ward. He really stepped up. Of course, giving up, Jonathan Schuster, that free kick was just world class. No goalie's going to save that, but he played absolutely terrific. He looked like a senior goalie, and he's only a sophomore. So this Greenwich team has a great goalie for 2 years to come. But you mentioned the Greenwich back four. I think the Trumbull back four is easily just as good, amazingly. And you look at that back four, we'll talk about it later when we talk about that game, we broadcast the game. It's amazing how both so similar these teams are. Offensive-wise, and the back four for both teams are just so similar, too. I really like, and to also add, the Trumbull back four, the two center backs, I really have enjoyed watching them kind of go back and forth. Good chemistry between that back four, which is good to have.
And that back four will be tasked with slowing down not only Sebastian Hernandez and Alejandro McLean, who did have a free kick goal himself, which was the game winner, but you've got to watch out for the wingers of the Cardinals. You've got Shoki Araki on the left wing and Ray Nakayama on the right wing. They are speedy, crafty on possession, and they set up the strikers very well. If the Trumbull back four gets caught sleeping or is lazy on those wings, that's where Greenwich will really be able to take advantage.
You're absolutely right. So the two back wing backs have to be careful of the flanks coming in. And Sebastian Hernandez, he's just such a threat. He can beat you down the sideline. He can beat you through the middle. He's so gifted. And then you have, right behind him, you have Alejandro McLean, who really has been a great leader for this Greenwich team all season long. You mentioned that great free kick he had. World class again. Great technique, great finish. I think we're going to see those two guys. If Trumbull can shut those two guys down, they'll win this game. But so many teams have had such difficulty with doing that.
Much easier said than done. Hernandez, obviously a speed player for the Cardinals. That's why he's all the way up front. McLean just so strong on possession. We saw him weave his way through several double teams, even triple teams in that semifinal. A player we haven't mentioned yet, which is scary to think about, Chris Lancia for the Eagles. The left footer playing on that right wing. Just so talented and creates so much space when he works back to the middle. Tell us a little bit about what you expect from Lancia tonight.
Last but not least, I've had such a blast watching him these past couple of weeks, and he's so much fun to watch. As a former winger myself, I enjoy watching him. His technique on that right side, cutting it back, using his great left foot to cut it into the 18, that's a coach's dream. They love that, especially at this level. It's rare to find. and he is just a gifted player. And that's where the offense we really saw in the semifinal against Ward. That's where the offense really went through. They really played on that right side, try to get Lancia involved, play it in the 18. You got great guys like Weinstein in there as well. Restrepo waiting. That's how Restrepo scored the first goal. It was off of Chris Lancia. And that's how the offense is really you're gonna see them really play over to Chris Lancia. He can beat you with his speed and with his foot skills.
And I think that's what stands out the most about these two teams is that as talented as their top players are, if you over-focus on stopping them, the depth down both lineups, they've got 4, 5, even 6 guys all capable of scoring and producing for either team on any given night.
Yeah, and you talk about the depth. I really like Greenwich's depth. I think that's how they've been so successful all year. We saw it in the semifinal. We saw it in the quarterfinal. We've seen it all season long. They're just so strong on the bench, and it's credit to the head coach.
The matchup in goal, let's quickly take a moment on that. You've got James Johnson, we mentioned. Jonathan Campbell, who had arguably the save of the season with time expiring in the semifinals. A shot from Ricardo Rodriguez along the right sideline that had no business going anywhere near the net. It was a twine-seeking missile that Campbell fought off at the last minute. The senior has been superb up to this point in the playoffs. How does he continue having that success?
It starts tonight. He's got to finish strong. He's going up against a sophomore goalie who himself is having a great season. Jonathan Campbell, he's had an outstanding year. Great leader. He has great technique back in, as a keeper. It's a lot of fun to watch him play and to see, him read the balls when free kicks come in the box or a corner kick or any, he reads the ball so well as a keeper. He's got great vision. So Jonathan Campbell, big asset. These two goalies could really have great games tonight, and it starts with Jonathan Campbell, and I really do think he's going to have a great game tonight.
Trumbull missed out on the FCIAC tournament last year, but these were a lot of players who got a great amount of playing time, so the experience is there. They understand what's at stake. As for Greenwich, they were knocked out in the semis, so both teams giving us a brand new championship game. It should be a lot of fun. That one's set to start at 7 o'clock. Kevin and I on the call. We'll have plenty of coverage of that later on tonight, but let's take one more break. We'll look outside the soccer championships, peek over to McMahon for field hockey, and preview tonight's volleyball semifinals from Fairfield Ludlow. That coming up next here on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
On time, done right, safe and reliable. MrHandymanCT.com.
Let our satisfied customers tell it.
I have called Mr. Handyman for every reason, every occasion, every broken item, every leak. They have bailed me out on many occasions, and I would recommend them to anyone.
For any project, large or small.
MrHandymanCT.com.
The leaves are changing, water temps dropping, and the sun is setting a little earlier each day. But there's still a lot of great boating, fishing, and coast time left before we see the first snow. And above all, remember, it's always summer at the Dock Shop. With loads of new fishing tackle and accessories, clothing, jewelry, and home decor, the Dock Shop is just what you need when you start to feel that New England autumn chill. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
Washington Prime, now open on Main Street in Georgetown. Come enjoy our relaxed setting, excellent service, award-winning nightly happy hours, and feast on our creative new American cuisine. Connecticut Magazine's winner for Best Steak, Washington Prime of Georgetown.
At InSports Trumbull, the game is always on inside. Recently renovated and home to one of Connecticut's largest indoor turf fields, InSports is a multi-sport recreation center providing state-of-the-art facilities for league play, camps, and youth programs. Sign up now for InSports High School Passing League. These 7-on-7 teams formed by area high schools offer a great way for football players to stay sharp in the off-season. 3 weekly 6-week sessions will be offered from December 1st through January 5th, January 12th through February 16th, and February 23rd through March 30th. For more information, visit insportscenter.com. Like and follow us on Facebook.
When it comes to local entertainment, we've got it all.
From movies, local artists, etiquette, and more.
Watch HAN Arts and Leisure with me, Steve Coulter, and our Arts and Leisure editor, Sally Sanders, Mondays at 12:30, right here on the HAN Network.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
Back on Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network with a special edition today coming to you from the bleachers outside Testa Field on the campus of Norwalk High. I'm Frank Renito, joined with Kevin Coleman. We've broken down the soccer championships for tonight. Our own AJ Simonowski will be at Brian McMahon High School at 7 o'clock. He's got the call for the field hockey championship. It's another 1-2 matchup, Kevin. We've got the Wilton Warriors, who needed overtime to survive the late run of the Norwalk Bears, and the Staples Wreckers.
Yeah, credit AJ. Great call in that game. That was a very high drama game. Very exciting too for a playoff game like that. So very fun to watch. These are two great teams, and Wilton we know is just very good.
Wilton, the defending Class L state champion. They were the FCIAC runner-up last year, losing to Darien. There's got to be a sigh of relief from the Warriors knowing that the Blue Wave isn't standing in their way again.
It's I think, isn't that the big story that Darien isn't in it? I mean, it's amazing. It's such a great program. Having an off year, they'll definitely bounce back next year, though.
We do expect that, but without even Darien there, Staples is still no slouch. The Warriors have got a tough test against them, and it's two opposite styles. You've got Wilton, who poured 21 shots on goal in that semifinal game, against the Wreckers, who pulled out a 2-1 victory, holding Darien to only 2 shots. The old cliche is defense wins championships, but if you score more goals than the other team, that's usually the advantage.
That is also true, but defense does win. It does win championships. I think Wilton so strong back there, and they have a great keeper as well. This is gonna be a tough match for Staples, but credit them for making it there. They've had a great season as well, so it's gonna be it's gonna be close. But you mentioned how Wilton only held them to 2 shots. I mean, that's very, very impressive.
The Wreckers come in as the 2 seed in the tournament, but they are actually the only team who did not suffer a loss this year. They had 1 tie that was earlier in the 2 ties. One of them was to Wilton earlier in the year. You come in unbeaten, but you're actually the number 2. The game's at McMahon. It's similar to what we said with Ridgefield before. Are you really looking at this as an underdog, or is it a 50-50 toss-up in this one?
I'm going to say this is an underdog. I'm going to say Staples coming into this with a big chip on their shoulder. Without a doubt, they're coming into this saying we want to beat the defending FCIAC champion. We want to rip that belt away from Wilton, so they're going to come in definitely ready to fight. And it's just like what we're going to see tonight in these 2 soccer matches. These are 2 great teams. Talk about all these matchups that we're going to see playoff-wise in the FCIAC. It's just such a treat for everyone.
We have 3 1-2 championships so far in the fall. In the volleyball tournament, the top 4 seeds advanced with ease out of the quarterfinals. They get set to start the semifinal plays tonight. The first game will be at 5 o'clock from Fairfield Ludlow. It'll be number 1 Greenwich and number 4 McMahon. Greenwich obviously so impressive this year, 15-1. Before we get to the Cardinals, I thought the bounce back effort from the Senators, losing 2 out of 3 down the stretch, you fall out of potentially being the number 1 seed down to number 4. Get a tough Trumbull Eagles team in a 4-5 matchup, and they shut them out. That win to me was key for the Senators that set up a rematch from the last day of the regular season against a very talented Greenwich team.
Very talented Greenwich team. This is a very talented Brian McMahon team. Very good program for volleyball. Of course, they had their game last Friday, Greenwich beating them. I think coming into this game, McMahon's definitely going to come in, ready to fight. They want to win that game. They know how Greenwich plays now. They know how close that game's going to be, so they're going to come into this. It's going to be a totally different game from what we saw last week, the last game of the regular season.
I really agree with that. I think at the end of the season, too, a lot of teams are just so fatigued from that tough stretch. A lot of the top teams on the schedule for McMahon at the end of the year, and especially when you've got a player like Meredith Pellegrino, you can never count out that Senators team, who's having a once-in-a-decade season right now, and it'll definitely be an interesting one in the 1-4 matchup. The 2-3 matchup, you've got the Ridgefield Tigers and the Stanford Black Knights. Stanford probably the surprise of this tournament, but they come in the 3 seed, coming off another shutout win, really impressive there. Ridgefield has just looked so strong, though, since that loss early in the year to Greenwich.
Yeah, and, great year for Stanford. Congratulations to them for making it. This is such a cool moment for them. They're definitely very excited to be there. On the other hand, it's the Tigers who are just so strong. They have great coaching staff. Everything from the top to the bottom. They're just such a well put together team. And so strong. We saw them a few weeks ago. They look very, very good. High power. They know how to play. So I think Ridgefield is definitely going to be a tough test for Stanford, but it's going to be a great match.
You've got another Middlebrook, obviously, in that match. Elizabeth Middlebrook for the Tigers. Keep an eye on Katie Leinekin. She was an Athlete of the Week nominee not too long ago. 68 assists in 2 games in 1 week. She'll definitely be a key player for the Tigers if they're going to continue to roll here. I think the scales right now tilt towards another 1-2 matchup in the championships, but my heart is telling me go with McMahon. I think they're able to pull off an upset today in a rematch against Greenwich.
I like that pick a lot. I think I'm going to stick with that too. I'm going to roll with Frank. I'm going to say that McMahon's going to pull up the upset. We mentioned it. They saw Greenwich already. They know what to expect. So I'm going to say I agree with you. McMahon's going to win this one.
Quickly, let's take a look at a couple of key football games that'll matter around the state this weekend. Greenwich is playing against Norwalk this weekend. They need to continue winning to stay alive in the Class L playoffs. Should be an easy one. Not easy, but the Cardinals should be able to roll. Ridgefield, who also needs to roll again, has got West Hill. We expect the Tigers to continue to reel another win in there. They'll meet up next week. We'll be at Tiger Hollow for that game. But before that, you've got Trumbull and New Canaan this week. New Canaan looking to stay undefeated. Trumbull, 2 losses on the verge of being eliminated from the postseason. This is an angry Trumbull team. If you remember last year, Kevin, Mike Collins showed them up throwing for 9 touchdowns in that game in a 69-20 victory. What can the Eagles do to have a chance against the Rams?
They have a great quarterback, Johnny McElroy. That's what it is. And they got Marquise Woods as a running back. These 2 guys have shown all year why, they're good offense. It's unfortunate that they have 2 losses. This is a team I'd like to see, really have finish strong, and I think they will. This is going to be a great matchup against a great New Canaan team who we've seen. Drew Pine. I just laugh because he's a freshman. It's amazing the talent that he has. It's absolutely a blast to watch him play.
Should be a great one. That's tomorrow night at Trumbull at 7 o'clock. We will be live at Staples tomorrow night. We've got St. Joe's and the Wreckers. St. Joe's comes in 6-1. Their only loss week 1 against Darien. The Wreckers, another double L team from the FCIAC with 2 losses. This is basically now an elimination game for Staples. They've got Darien and Greenwich left on the schedule and realistically need to win out to qualify for the playoffs. It's a great matchup, though. You've got Staples with Andrew Speed now healthy at quarterback versus that high-powered grip it and rip it offense for the Cadets. Which way do you lean right now?
I'm leaning St. Joe's. Again, going back to that game we covered against Wilton, really liked what I saw with that offense. Really impressed me. It's really, to me, it's amazing to think that Staples could be knocked out and a great football program like that. It's amazing to think.
And for me, what the scariest part of this whole situation is, let's say Staples, Greenwich, and Ridgefield all win this week. You could run into a situation now where Staples loses to Darien, Ridgefield loses to Greenwich, and then Greenwich loses to Staples, and they all pick each other off with 3 losses and eliminate all 3 teams from state contention. So that is something to keep an eye on as well.
That's definitely an odd scenario. It could happen. Imagine if that happens, though. That would be very, very odd. I just think that Ridgefield is on a roll right now, and no one can stop them. They beat Staples 42-7 at home. I'm impressed by this Tigers team. I say they're going to keep rolling along. I think Greenwich is going to bounce back, too.
It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have coverage of all those football games wrapped up on Monday on Nutmeg Sports. Kevin and I, we're going to take a little break. Get ready for this afternoon's action. The Girls Soccer Championships at 4:30 right here from Norwalk, followed on the HAN Network by the Boys Soccer Championship at 7 o'clock on WiltonBulletin.com and DarienTimes.com. AJ Simonowski will bring you the Field Hockey Championship between Wilton and Staples. That at 7 o'clock as well. That's going to do it for this Nutmeg Sports. We'll see you in a little bit right here on the HAN Network.